Welcome to our Veem workshop. For all of those of you who are getting to be here live or you're catching the replay, we are so excited that you're curious about Veem. It is a great platform. I use it personally. I'm bringing it to you because our community asked to find out about Veem. So I reached out to Veem and to Patrick, and they said, we'd love to come on and show you guys how to use it. It works for more than just QuickBooks. We are going to focus on QuickBooks, but he's going to share some of the other platforms that it uses. But you can't come to a Candus workshop, as most of you know, without pulling a thought of the day. So we're going to start with our thought of the day, and then we're going to get right in. We'll hand it over to Patrick, and he can talk more about it, and then I'll share. We're just going to ask questions as we go, and then I'll share more about why I use it, how our team appreciates it, the people we work with use it so much. So we're going to use the Life Loves You deck. Let's see what we get today. Did you know that I pull cards at the beginning of my workshops, Patrick?
I did not, and I'm loving this idea. I might start doing it in our morning team huddles.
Oh, yes. We do it on our team call, too. So we do a team meeting every week. We go over what everybody's working on, and we do like a thought. I actually have a different deck. I'll have to maybe we'll send you one as a gift. We have this deck that's from a friend of mine, Emily Aarons, it's Angels in Your Biz, and hers is all focused focus on outsourcing, focus on. So this one's really a business deck. That's the one we typically use for our team meeting. We pick some cards for the whole team, and then if every team member wants one, but then we pick one for each of the team members. So that's part of what we do.
Awesome.
But we also do them before at the beginning of most of my calls. So what are we meant to hear today? Let's see what we get. I choose happiness. That's today's card, thought of the day. Memo to self, remember to enjoy the miracle of existence today. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and sometimes we just need the simple reminder to choose happy. All right, so we're gonna get started. I'm just gonna kind of hand it over to Patrick and let him share about how the platform works. One of the things I wanna say before we get started and why I love Veem, why I ask them, you guys know I don't bring very many people to you, but we were using PayPal for our international team members, and I really disliked it was like such a rigmarole to set them up, and then they had to sit it in a little account and wait for it to go to their bank account. It was just always a nuisance. And one of the things I love most about Veem is that it goes straight to their bank account. It is easy to use, and it syncs with QuickBooks Online especially very well, and they're still working on some of the integration for the desktop users. You can use it. He's going to show you about it, but hit Veem up and tell him how much, for those of you desktop users, how much you want the integration for desktop and the benefits that you get with the online. So I think that's it. I'll let you take it from there. I'm going to turn off my camera, but I'll be here.
Perfect.
Okay.
So before I dive into sort of how to use Veem, I'll just start at sort of the beginning. Some of you may have heard of us before, some of you may not have. Veem was founded about 6 years ago by a team of payments experts. These are all people who've run different businesses who said all of this international payments are a pain. The domestic payments are painful. Nothing is synchronized, nothing is easy. So how do we make the easiest way for businesses to pay and get paid? So that started out 6 years ago. And rapidly we grew to over 200,000 customers in over 100 countries, and that's growing exponentially by the day. So that's sort of what we are now and how we've gotten there. But what's really important to understand is sort of what we do. So Veem automates the way that you make your payments. So Candus mentioned a little bit about our QuickBooks Desktop and how we use Veem and QuickBooks Online and some of the integrations we have there. But what it really comes down to is the easiest way to send a payment. I'm not sure if many of you, and you can always respond in the chat, have had a bank wire you've had to pay before. I've had to send an ACH through your bank portal. It takes forever. There's forms to fill out, information you have to collect from your contractor or your vendor. It's painful all the way around. And if you get any of that information wrong, your funds are sitting out there in limbo, waiting to be returned back to you. And this can take upwards of 3 months in some cases. All in all, it's just a very blind process. You kind of put your money in a bag and throw it over the fence. We wanted to find a way to help provide you with the same kind of tracking you have on a FedEx package for your Veem payment. So that brings me to Veem. This is your Veem dashboard. What your Veem dashboard allows you to do is see sort of what's going on with all of your payments at all times. So here's a list of all of my payments. Most of them are closed because I'm not actually sending money on this account. You'll see some are submitted and some are waiting for approval. And I'll dig into what those mean a little bit more in a minute. But let's talk about sending a regular payment. So if you're using QuickBooks Desktop or you're not using one of our integrations currently, this is what Veem would look like for you, and it's very straightforward. So we'll go ahead and send a payment. This is going to look a lot different than your bank portal, and this is what it is. So you'll enter the email address of the person that you want to pay. So I'm going to try to pay myself. So you'll see that I already have an account, so it knows that and it'll automatically populate. But let's say I'm paying someone who doesn't exist on the Veem network. Clearly, this is not a business. This is not a real person, but I'll add them as a contact and set them up. All I need to know from you is their email and what country they're located in. From there, if you want to let them know, hey, I'm using Veem to pay my bills because of X, Y, and Z, you can. We'll also send along a little message as well. And then you can add them as a contact.
Can I share something, Patrick?
Yeah, please.
So one of the benefits, my husband's actually asking me this last night. So one of the benefits to having this is you're basically sending them an invite and you don't need their bank information. So like if I want to work with an independent contractor, I don't need to know, they're not giving me their bank. I'm basically, what he's doing right here is inviting them so that they set up an account. I just wanted to give them the specifics on like how this works.
Sure.
So you don't have to worry about all the rules of knowing all their bank information.
No more collecting information, no more securing that information. And the biggest part of it is actually mitigating risk in your business. That it comes up a lot right now is how do we protect ourselves from all of these problems? The number one way bank information is compromised is via email. You might get an email from someone saying, hey, my bank information has changed. Here are my new bank details. How do we know that email was sent from that person? How do we verify that that's correct? And that's where Veem comes in. And I'll talk a little bit more about our verification process in a moment. But what you can do is you can provide as much information as you have for them. So if you have the contractor's name and phone number, that's really helpful for us in case they need help setting up. If you have their address, their city, their postal code, their zip code, whatever it may be, go ahead and enter it. And then let's say you have a contractor who really just needs a little bit of extra help. You can enter some extra business details. And then if you have their banking information, you can enter it too. It'll be specific by country, but if you don't have any of this information, you can always just skip the entire process and just submit it. So from there, we're going to enter the amount that we want to pay that person. So what's actually on our invoice? So I'm going to start by saying my invoice is $1,000 US. It's very straightforward. We'll send $1,000 US and you'll pay nothing to send that. Under additional information, you can update invoice number, any notes you want to add, if the second person you want to CC, and then attach an invoice file here as well.
Can you pause for a quick second? So
yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but he was saying they were in Australia. And so he's sending $1,000 US and it doesn't cost anything, but in Australia, they're receiving the Australian, you can see the Australian exchange right there. So he's sending US dollars, but they're receiving it in Australia because of, what is that considered, Australian dollar? I don't actually know.
Yeah, it's the Australian dollar. Or Aussie dollar, if they
you
like
guys
to
are
call
kind
it.
of seeing the nuance of what he's doing. He's making it look so simple, but there's a lot going on here that, so for example, our team members, a lot of times they want to receive their money in, say, one of our team members in the Philippines. So she wants to receive it in Filipino dollars so that she doesn't have to pay the exchange rate, which he'll talk probably about later. But this, I want to just make sure you guys are seeing what he's actually doing because he just does it so smoothly.
Well, and that's the whole point of what we tried to do with Veem, is take all of that heavy lifting off your plate. Candus and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Candus, about your team member in the Philippines and how we calculate this and how this all happens. And I just said to Candus, just put in what's on your bill, and we'll take care of the rest for you. We don't want you to have to think about how am I paying this person, what's happening in the background. That's Veem's job. Let us and our software and our expertise step in and take over that, and you just worry about making the payment and moving on to growing your business some more. So now let's say that person in Australia invoiced you in Australian dollar. To give you a bit more of an understanding of what this looks like, we'll actually show you the exchange rate you're getting so you can compare us apples to apples with that of your bank or your other provider. Veem is typically half the cost of that of the bank, and I'll dig into what some of our customers have found over the last little while and a customer survey we did in a moment. So let's go ahead and set up this payment. So everything's entered. I have everything I want on this payment, but I don't want to send it today. I don't need to do it until Friday, so I'm going to go ahead and schedule this out for Friday. So it will send on Friday. We're going to give you the approximate exchange rate of that day. We'll update it that day as well, just so you can see it, and go from there. Once I click on next, it's going to ask me to confirm everything. And then I have an approval set up on this account, so it won't actually let me send any money, but it would either say send or submit for approval. If you submit it for approval, anybody here can go ahead and approve it for you. And I'll dig into that in a second as well. I'm going to pause right there. I know that we have a couple chats come through. Is there any questions so far?
I think we're good.
I think we're good? Perfect.
If you guys have questions, pop them in as we go. So I do want to say one thing for people who aren't international and they're just sending money domestic, in other words, local, and you're just paying somebody in your same city, somebody in your same state, somebody in another state in the United States, you can, or wherever you're at located, province, whatever, you can do that as well. So he's talking international, but it does work for both. And he'll show you that as well. But I just want to kind of make sure if you're going, wait, I don't do international, this works either way. And it's very smooth.
This is my domestic payment that I just queued up here while Candus was talking about it to show you what that looks like. So you enter the amount that you want to pay on your bill, the date that you want to send it, and we'll let you know everything. From there, all you have to do is the same thing you did for the international side, enter all the information and click continue. We'll talk about pricing in a moment and how that all works, but it's very cost effective all the way around. Does that sort of help, Candus, with the domestic side and what it looks like as well?
Yeah, I think, and I want to speak to if somebody's going, oh my gosh, like there's so many steps to this. Don't worry, there's trainings within Veem. We just want to make sure that we are showing you what's possible. And if this is something you want to do, you can always talk to the Veem team. They'll help you walk through it. I need to probably outline exactly what we're going to cover, but as far as like domestic, yes. Somebody was asking, and you might get to this later, but when you get a chance, like, can you compare it to like QuickBooks Bill Pay and the pros and cons and kind of, or how it syncs with QuickBooks, but you can do that.
Yeah. And that's actually exactly what I was about to do now. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and connect my QuickBooks Online account. It's just going to prompt me to sign in. I have a QBO account, so this is going to take an extra step, but for all of you guys, it'll just queue it up for you. And let's see if it's going to make me get a secondary login code today.
You never know. So there are,
you never know. Sometimes
while you're waiting for that to load, can I ask you those?
Yeah.
So they're curious, do the people you're paying know that it's going to go to their bank account? Yes, because, well, I'll let you speak to that. But one of the things I know when I do it is I send them a link, basically, just as you set up your Veem and you're going to pay other people, just like he showed a few minutes ago, they have to actually set up an account to be able to receive the Veem. Is that correct, Patrick? So people know it's going to go straight to the bank because they choose what account they want.
And we have a ton of options for them when it comes to receiving their funds, and each are done sort of on a country-specific level. So they're going to choose the options that are best for them to receive their funds, but 99.9% of the time, people just want it in their bank account. So this is a great way for them to see that, hey, these funds are coming to my bank account, here's how that works. So once we have the account integrated and authorized, you can edit your vendors and tell us exactly what vendors you want to pull over. Maybe you want to pay a couple of your bills through automatic payment already set up at your bank. No need to move that over. Keep it there. Keep it moving. Let's not disrupt anything. And the same on the invoicing side. You edit the customers you want to pull over to Veem.
So because we have a lot of desktop users, he's specifically, if you're not familiar with what he's doing right now, he's setting up the QuickBooks Online sync, like the integration for QuickBooks Online specifically. And what he's using, just quickly to tell you, is he's choosing who's the vendor, what's the account, those kinds of things that you would set up just like you do any other vendor.
Exactly. And so this is a clearing account. It's a way that we reconcile our transactions to make sure everything's working for you. You can choose whatever account you'd like us to deposit our records into. That's up to you. And then any fees associated, if we ever have to reconcile one, just let us know where you'd like us to put it. And there we go. So now I've connected the two. So what happens is you see the wheel thinking here. The QuickBooks Online integration connects both sides of the general ledger in Veem automatically in a two-way data sync 100% of the time. So whenever you refresh the page or change the screen, we're going to update this dynamically so you can constantly have an accurate list of all your bills. As you can see, I like to buy things from Marwan Streets and a lot of things, as you can probably tell. but I'm going to go ahead and pay a bill on this side. So I'm going to select 2 of my bills from QuickBooks Online and click on Pay Selected. From there, I can confirm everything looks good. And I'm going to send 1 debit and 1 credit just because it makes it easier for the vendor. It's up to you with what works best. And then click Confirm. Once I click Confirm, these payments go out. If the other side's already set up on Veem, it lands in their bank account within 2 business days. And that's whether we're going domestically or internationally. If there is ever a time where the person hasn't received a payment through Veem before, I'd add an extra day to that timeline just so they can get set up and go through that process. Once I click on Confirm, off those payments will go. When we debit your account, we'll mark the bill as paid as well, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that screen, I noticed it showed if there'd be a fee, and I just wanted to mention that to them. That in there, that like that would be if there's a fee, if Veem is charging a fee. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So the only time you'd ever see a fee right now, QuickBooks Online users don't pay a dime for domestic payables through Veem. It's a relationship that Intuit and us have worked on together to offer to those users who are in the cloud to make things a little more simple for them and convenient. So we waived that domestic fee already. What that's going to look like across the board for them is it's just going to show 0. Should there ever be a fee, I'm just going to make something up. Let's say you're paying with your credit card. We would display a fee there for you. It's just so you can see everything that's going on in the process, and we're 100% transparent with you.
Because that was a question that came up from Michelle. She said, what is the cost? So I want to make sure I know you'll talk about
sure.
it.
And I'll talk about costs in a more holistic structure at the end, just so we can go through it all, because there's a bunch of bells and whistles in here that I haven't even touched yet, and some of those pieces have costs to them. So what this looks like as a whole is a really simple way to handle all of your AP. Accounts receivable through QuickBooks Online is the exact same thing. What we do is we pull in all of your open invoices just like this. You select the ones you want to send and click Send. From there, what will happen is the QuickBooks Online invoice will go out to that party along with a second email from Veem. So let's say you're using a credit card merchant service. All of those things will still stay attached to the Intuit and QuickBooks Online bill. They'll just get a second email asking them to pay through Veem. And on the bottom of the QuickBooks Online invoice will be a link to pay that online through Veem as well. Once that's paid through Veem, we'll reconcile it automatically too. All in all, it's to make that process go from an hour to 2 minutes. Does that all make sense so far?
Yes, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I'm the question lead. So I've never used it for accounts receivable, but I know that was a question from some of our community was, can I also receive money through Veem? So the answer to that is yes. And how many days does it typically take to process the payment and then receive it?
For sure. So it depends on the country and the amount. Veem doesn't have a limit. So if you need to send $2 million in a transaction, we can do it. But $2 million moves very differently than $20 or $200. Your average transaction, anything less than $100,000 is going to move pretty straightforward, unless it's going to somewhere like Zambia. On average, we're 2 to 3 business days anywhere in the world from the debit time to the credit time. So it's 1 day to debit to us and then 1 day to credit typically, maybe 2 if we're going somewhere a little more tricky.
Perfect.
Does that help?
Yep. Sounds great.
Awesome. Great. And now, so let's talk a little bit about more of some of the controls that a lot of people want to have on their payments. So I know myself, I never want to authorize a payment on my own. I like to have someone check my work just to make sure all the information is in correctly. There's no data errors, those kinds of things. Whether you're using QuickBooks Online or Veem Standalone, you can set up an approval workflow. So that's located in the settings menu under approvals. It's very straightforward. You list all the people that you want to be able to create payments and all the people that you want to be able to approve payments. And then you set up your tiers. So these are based on dollar amounts. All you have to do is tell us what the lower limit is, and you can add as many tiers as you want and as many approvers as you want. So for any bill from $0 all the way up to just shy of 10,000, I want 2 people to approve that. So typically it's the person submitting the bill, so myself, and then I'll have 1 other person check it and approve it. Anything over $10,000, I don't really need to have those approvals set up, but I do want to limit the people that can send those payments. So I only set it to these people right now being allowed to send those payments. If I want to change that, I can say I need 3 of those people to approve it, just like that, and click on Save.
So the benefit of that, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say the benefit of that is that a lot of times people ask like, how do I like have checks and balances? How do I make sure there's no embezzlement? How can I use this while still having security? And so these are some of the features that you can be using to have different parts of your team maybe entering things, but you're verifying them, or you have different checks and balances.
Exactly. And then last but not least, the most important part is this enable email notifications piece. There are some people who are going to come into Veem regularly. There are some people who come into Veem seldomly. You can turn it on and off and customize Veem to fit your business's needs. And the nice part about Veem is we're going to be there to support you through that entire process. Every person on Veem gets 24/7 support, whether that's your vendor, you, your accountant. We're all here to help you guys. That includes dedicated phone calls, chat support, email support, everything you need to make sure you're taken care of. If it's hey, I know you have an approvals, but I know nothing about it. How do I set it up? We'll walk through sort of what you're looking for and design something that's going to fit your needs. And there's absolutely no cost for that at all. So that is on the approval side. When you submit a bill for approval, it's actually going to go to a separate menu over here called approvals. And you'll see I already have one queued up and it's saying I had 0 out of the 2 people to approve this. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a peek at it. What it's going to show me on my side is what's been provided. So I don't know who I'm sending this to fully, but I can tell it's this email and this bank account number, and here's the invoice number. Now, you'll see this bill ID here. This is because this was from QuickBooks Online. This will link directly back into the general ledger, so you can see everything that's going on with that payment, how it was cash coded, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just a great way to have that extra check and balance that Candus was just talking about and really get a holistic overview of what's going on with each and every payment. From there, it's as simple as just coming in here and clicking approve. If there's multiple, you can just check them off and mass approve them all at once. So we've talked a lot about making payments and receiving payments. I want to talk a little bit more about QuickBooks Desktop users because I've talked a lot about QuickBooks Online users as well. If you're using QuickBooks Desktop, not a problem. Like I said, this send payment and this receive payment button are going to be here for you whether you're doing AR or AP. You'll just enter that email like I showed originally and set everything up. When it comes time to reconcile your books at the end of the month, you're going to obviously have your bank feed, but you're probably going to want to cross-reference that with everything in Veem as well. And you can download a CSV right here. On the export transaction side, you want to select anything deposited, and then you can choose AR or AP if you want to do them separately, or you can do them together, and then your date range, and then export. Once it's there, you'll get an email telling you it's ready, and you come back in and it's there for you. It takes about 2 minutes, unless you're sending thousands of payments where you might run it a little bit slower to make sure everyone can still access Veem. So that's what Veem looks like for a QuickBooks Desktop user. It's super straightforward. And I would say roughly about 70% of our customers use Veem without an integration. And they still get a ton of benefit. The customers that use it with an integration save even more time. And Michelle, I think that's a great question. I'm going to answer Michelle's question here. She's asking how Veem differs from a Bill.com other than cost. Well, there's a couple big pieces that really differentiate us on that front. Bill.com is fantastic. I will not complain about them whatsoever. They are great for a large customer. I find they have a lot of features. And for a lot of small business owners, it's just too much for them to handle. It's too complicated. There's too much in and out for them. So they like to have a way to see how they balance between the two. Secondly, there is the cost feature, which is very restrictive. And I'll touch on cost of Veem right now because we've kind of talked about a lot of things, but it's pretty straightforward. There's no monthly fee, no user fees, and it's only transaction fees. So if you're a QuickBooks Desktop user or using Veem without an integration, it's a single $1 for a domestic payment. And an international, it's just the foreign exchange rate that'll apply. Those are the only 2 ways Veem will make money on you sending a payment. There is a couple other products where we do make some tertiary income. And those are things like any capital products we offer. So we have a couple lines of credit and some invoice factoring that we do on our side, as well as for contractors in the US, some of them like to get their funds really fast. So typically within 45 minutes of that payment being available to them. So we've built an integration called Deposit to Debit. What this allows us to do is deposit funds directly into their debit card, and it happens very, very quickly. So there's a small fee for that as well to mitigate the risk of sending that up. Does that sort of help answer your question, Michelle? Perfect. That's great to hear. So I think that sort of covers everything from Veem as a whole, but let's talk a little bit about more why people choose us and what actual effects they see. So we surveyed 200,000 users last year and asked them, what does Veem do for their business? How does it impact them? And an overwhelming response came back to us that actually quite shocked us. 80% or more of our Veem customers are saving hundreds of hours per year, over 104 to be exact. This comes from a few areas. Typically, it's the reconciliation process that they don't have to do when they're using QuickBooks Online, and then our other integrations into Xero and NetSuite. And then the other part is all of that time that you send emails back and forth to your suppliers or your contractor saying, yes, the check is in the mail. We've all played that game. We want to end it once and for all by using a payment tracker. It's like a FedEx package. We just tell them every step of the way, your payment's been submitted to us. We've approved your payment. The payment will land in your account on blank day. So they know when it's coming, they have that clarity, and it saves all of that communication time back and forth. Secondly, cost. Especially if you're sending international transactions and you're working with your bank, the average wire fee in the US is $35. I'm sure you can understand if you send one wire a month, how much you're spending on wire fees alone in a year, let alone any exchange rate costs you're paying. So over 80% of our users wrote back to us saying they're saving over $6,000 a year. I don't know about you, Candus, but I could use an extra $6,000 in my bank account. It would make life so much easier, especially right now. And during all of this craziness in the market since March, we have seen a number of businesses say, I need to automate my processes more. I've had to scale down my staff. How do I make this easier? And 104 hours back in your business every year can really lead to that growth and that game change. So that is Veem as a whole. I'm going to turn it over to Candus and you guys for questions, and we'll kind of take it one piece at a time here.
So I want to speak to it so that they hear your side, but I want to talk like a real person. Remember, I'm like, okay, guys, let's talk real talk now. Okay, so there's the presentation side, and then there's the real. I wanted to talk about the tracker actually because I forgot about that when you said it. I'm like, yes, I love that. So one of the awesome things, especially when you're paying people local or international, you can see like for example, like when I'll just get an email. So in my examples, like I had a local person who's an independent contractor that billed me this last week. She sent me the email. I looked at it. I could see there's a little memo, so it told me the hours. She gave me a PDF. I could look at it. I could verify what it is. And then I just from my phone, but you can do it from your computer, whatever. I just clicked the button. I logged in. I paid it. And then I got a text message and I said to her, you know, and she got a message too, or whatever her settings are, and it's just done. But then you can also, like for my virtual assistant, I'll see that I paid her. And then if I kind of want to see like when it will arrive, you have two options. You can either send it in that moment, or you can schedule it to send it later. So there's a lot of those like little nuances that I really appreciate. I like getting to see it like go. What questions do you guys have specifically about it?
Yeah, there's a couple of great questions. I'm going to leave one for you to answer right away from Mary. How does PayPal compare to Veem? I use it to pay my contractors. I think this is something that you used to do, and I'd love to hear sort of what happened for you and what that experience was like.
So one thing to think about is if you're a desktop user, there is a fee. They're working on doing integration so that maybe those fees someday will be gone. They're just seeing if there's enough people that are desktop users that will use it, basically, is kind of what Veem's working on. It's an integration. It takes a lot of time on the back end for them. So they're working on it. So it does cost $1. The thing about PayPal that a lot of people don't know is sometimes you send your contractor money, but they're having to pay a merchant fee on the back end of that, right? So you see that you gave them $100, for example, they got the full 100. You think they got the full 100, they didn't. They actually are paying a fee, just like if I receive money from you guys through PayPal, I have to pay almost a 3% fee. So if you start using Veem, instead of them having to pay a 3% fee on their end, you can choose who pays the $1, right? Is that how that works? Like they can choose if they're a desktop user, or does it always?
So the $1 is always to the sender of funds.
Okay.
So who's ever sending the payment will pay the dollar fee. And then anything international, it just depends on who's converting the currency.
Okay.
So if you're invoiced in, I'll use Canadian dollar, you be paying the conversion out of your US dollar account to pay me in Canadian dollar. But let's say I was paying you and you invoiced me in Canadian dollar. Well, then you're going to convert it into US dollar and you're going to pay that conversion because I'm paying in my local currency.
Okay. So you can choose, like what we do with our team members, because I didn't want them to have to incur the cost, is I always have them just bill me and I pay for it and I do the fee because I figure I want them to get the full amount. So something to think about with PayPal is, so there's a lot of hidden fees that you don't really see that you're not going to have with Veem. I've been using Veem for I think almost 2 years now. So
Yeah,
it's
almost 2 years.
not like I started using this last month and I'm bringing it to you. This is something I've personally used for 2 years and I'm sharing it with you because part of our simplified community and our Commons QuickBooks members were like, ooh, what is this? Bring it to me. So that's why we're doing this workshop. It's not like just a fly by the night kind of thing. Rana says, who pays the fee? We just talked about that, the sender or receiver. You can, it depends on international, local. He just spoke to that. Michelle, Candus, I have real talk from your perspective, Veem versus Bill. I don't use Bill.com personally, so I can't speak to the comparison. I can, from my perspective, share with you how smooth and easy I love Veem. That's all I can speak to. Unfortunately, I haven't used Bill.com. I have clients, but this is the deal, guys. It's not going to cost you. It's not like you have to pay a fee to try it out. So why not just try it out and see? Like, it's kind of like an iPhone. My parents are always like, should I get an iPhone or should I get an Android? And I'm like, well, it depends, right? Like you need to test it and see what works for you. I would just recommend testing the two, comparing them and see what works. I can speak from my experience and I'm bringing you Veem because I love it. That's why. Michelle says, is there a document that I can review that explains? Do you guys have any?
Yeah, so Michelle, if you want to reach out to partners@veem.com, I'll send you over some of our comparison tables and walk you through what that looks like. And we can discuss that a little bit more for you as well.
Mary said half of her contractors are, you know what, if you send me, you could do that, but if you want, we could also add it with like something with the replay, like as a PDF if you want.
For sure.
Page. Then she said, half of her contractors are international. I'm telling you, this can make your life so much easier. And the fact that the disadvantage to PayPal, Mary, something else to consider, is it goes to PayPal and then they have to transfer it and it's kind of a nuisance for a lot of independent contractors. They have to get a debit card. So like our team member, especially the one specifically that's international, she really loves Veem, very happy with it. And it's very consistent that it will pay you on time and when you're receiving your money, where PayPal sometimes if stuff didn't go through very well, or she had a problem sometimes, I'm just speaking to my experience, she would have a problem with like, she had to go in and like call PayPal because something on the side of her, like all these different things that we didn't have a problem with that from the Veem side. Are the PayPal fees incurred as certain dollar amounts? I have never received less than what was sent. It depends if it's a business account or a personal account.
Yeah, there's that. And then it also depends on currency as well, Rhonda. So the way it works on PayPal, from my understanding, is if it's business or personal is obviously the separation, but if you're converting, they have their foreign exchange rate, which is marked up. So there's a fee built in there. And then there's another rate that they charge you on top of that. It works out to being about 6%. Domestic is typically totally free on PayPal for Business. The way they do things on their end is they make money on the float. So that's why they hold your money in a wallet and you debit it out of the wallet. The longer it sits in the wallet, the more money they have to play with and earn interest on that cash.
Yeah, because I have a business account. So like for me, I'll do like merchants and stuff like that. I have a business account. So I pay a fee for everything I select. I get paid on. So for those of you who are business, it's another option. Let's see. Do you see any other questions that we missed? What were the fees again compared to PayPal? So Patty, are you talking internationally or domestic? So if you're domestic, are you still there, Patrick? You look frozen.
There's one.
Domestic. Wait, am I frozen or is it? Oh, it's Patrick. Okay, good. I see him.
It's me.
Oh, the internet and technology. What can you say? Okay, so tell her, summarize domestic for her if she's a desktop user or an online user for Veem.
Yeah, for sure. So desktop is a single dollar per transaction to the sender of funds. If you're using QuickBooks Online, it's absolutely free. And then to answer the other question about setting up a new account, if you switch from desktop to QuickBooks Online, you don't set up another Veem account. You can integrate it, unintegrate it, move it all around as much as you'd like.
There you go. Considering Veem for Business, I only use QuickBooks ACH now and don't want to go with the credit card payments. Okay, so there you go.
There you go. And I think that would work perfectly for you. Veem and ACH is sort of our bread and butter. That is something that we do exclusively and want to continue doing. Is the most cost effective for everybody involved.
So what does that look like? Is that any different than what we're already doing, the ACH? How does that work?
Nope. So from your perspective, whether you're going domestic or international, it all starts with an ACH debit. So we'll debit through ACH, and if we're making a domestic payment, we'll make an ACH credit out. Everything on our network we try to do through a local transaction, and this is done through multi-rail technology, sort of the core of what Veem is and runs behind the scenes. So we have many different options to send payments all around the world, and that just depends on a bunch of factors, like what country it's going to, how much is the amount, what is the receiver, are they a contractor, are they a business, what does that look like, what bank are they with? We'll choose the best way to send those funds to make sure they arrive quickly and simply. And from your perspective and the receiver's perspective, 90% of the time, it's a local transaction. So in the US, that's an ACH.
Okay, cool. I love it. I can tell you guys, everybody that I know that loves it. There's, you know, the first time you set it up and you send your first bill or receipt, there's like a little bit of nuances, but then after that, it's super easy. So if you guys want to move forward, we did partner with Veem to help you guys out. You can always go to here. I'll put in there Veem, Candus Kampfer /Veem if you want. Otherwise, you can go directly with Veem and they'll help you set things up. Any other suggestions that you have? Anything else you guys have questions? Do you work with most countries on transactions? Said Mary.
We work with over 100 countries on our side. If you go to veem.com and you go right up to the About section, there will be a whole list of all the countries we serve, and you can just search for the ones you need in there, whether we're pulling funds out or pushing funds in. So you can take a look on that side.
Is paying bills what you do?
Paying bills what I do? No. Is paying bills what Veem does? Absolutely. So we handle any vendor payments. Typically the slogan I like to use to kind of keep it in mind is Veem is there to help you pay any business to business, including contractor transaction, for a good or a service. Anything in that realm, we can help out with for you.
Awesome. I'm trying to start using international vendors and cut out the middleman. So this sounds perfect for me. Thanks for the information. Great as usual. They loved you coming to visit.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yay.
And Mary, in the chat, I just posted a link to all of our countries so you can take a peek and see what we do and what currencies we service for you as well.
Awesome. We'll put all the stuff that we're sharing, we'll put it in a little place where you guys can, if you're catching the replay, where you won't miss out on all of the links and everything. She said thank you also. Any other questions before you go? We're going to wrap it up for today. We'll also give you guys in the replay the email links, whether you're more of an accountant and you want to help your clients set up their own Veem accounts, or if you are more of an end user, a business, and you want to set up your Veem, we'll give you all of the email addresses for that as well. Because I know there's a couple different, like you kind of go to different parts of the team depending on what you need. And they're very helpful.
Each language.
What'd you say?
So we have the accountant team, and we try to speak accountant and bookkeeper really well. And then we have another team that speaks small business and medium business owner much better than I ever could. I can talk accountants all day long. I can't always talk business owner the same way that I can speak accountant / bookkeeper as well. So we want to make sure you guys get the resources and support you need.
I do want to do one quick summary because I do speak business really well. So will you share your screen and bring up just the inside of Veem real fast? What I want to cover real quick, because he went over it pretty fast, is if you're an online user, you can basically just send a link and go in and you could do it and it syncs directly with your QuickBooks. So like for our team, I actually receive bills, so to speak, like people invoicing me more than I ever invoice anybody. I don't get paid usually through Veem. I pay people through Veem. But so basically I just send them the link. I say, set up your account and send me an invoice. That's what I do. And it's very smooth. And then it comes in and I just pay it. And then, but I do have QuickBooks Online for my business, but you guys know I also teach you a lot to do with desktop. So for desktop users, the sync isn't there as easily. He said you can download and then you can import it. But you can also use, if you're using bank feeds, or you can just, it syncs directly to your bank account. So I'm going to talk a little behind the scenes stuff real quick, Patrick, but what you basically are going to do for the behind the scenes for the QuickBooks side of it is you're going to pay it just like you normally do out of your normal bank account. You don't necessarily have to set up a separate bank account in QuickBooks for Veem for desktop users. This is just another form of how you're paying it out of your bank account, just like you would, like if you're going to go in QuickBooks and you're going to click pay bills, you would just do it through your regular bank account. It's just going to be processed in a slightly different way, but it's still for your reconciliation, for all of that, it'll be done just the same. If you just want to enter it as like, as if you wrote a check or in your check register, you could pay it directly the same way. You're just using Veem to process the payment. But when you come into QuickBooks, you're going to handle it just the same as normal through your same bank account. I personally wouldn't recommend, even though Patrick mentioned this, downloading it and then you'll have to do another reconciliation. I wouldn't make your life difficult. I would actually just use your regular bank reconciliation. Think of Veem almost like your bank account that you're using to use for paying bills. If you're an online user, it syncs nicely and you can see it and it will enter that way and it doesn't charge a fee. But you don't necessarily need to also be reconciling it outside of QuickBooks. Use it like a normal bank account. Does that make sense? For my side of like what I would speak to for you guys, just kind of wanted to speak to this side. Is this a competitor for Square? I would say no. So Square is more, I mean, possibly, but Square is kind of more merchant. I mean, yes, I guess you could send invoices, but you're not necessarily, what would you say? Are you considered a competitor to Square?
It depends on the use case. I would say majority of the time, no. But there is sometimes there's a little bit of overlap where you can choose a service that works best for you. You're always going to want to have a merchant services in your back pocket, and Square seems to be the prominent choice for a lot of people. But it depends on sort of what works best for your business. And so in that overlap, when you get into the B2B space or the payments to contractors, is sort of where we come into play. And so, Judy, to answer your question as well about tenants paying checks, feel free to shoot us an email to sales@veem.com, and we'll walk you through that. Real estate specifically, this has a couple extra things we have to go through to get you set up and moving.
So what about if I think one of their questions is also asking, I'm pretty sure Judy is at the moment, a desktop user. So she might need help with speaking, like if she wants to create an invoice or send her stuff through what that would look like, just as an FYI.
Sure, I'm gonna make a little note.
Okay, you could just ask them. So like our community, probably be a good idea to just be like, what version are you using? So we know which one to set you up with. Like, you know, speaking to like what their experience is gonna be. Did it help you guys to clarify like how Veem is actually would integrate, or how I would recommend using it for your QuickBooks side? Just kind of want to check in. Was there any questions about that while you're here? And I'm live. Okay. Thank you. I use AppFolio for my property to collect rent. And can I use this instead? So some people are saying that they have like different property management software that they use to collect rent. Can they use this instead?
So it depends on the situation. And so Judy, reach out to us on our side. We'll have a little bit more of a conversation about it. It's a little bit more in depth than we probably want to get onto on this call. But we can definitely talk about that and see how that might work for you. And then to answer Bonnie's question about her payment to Italy, it depends on the currency that we're sending in. If we're sending in euro, it's just the foreign exchange cost. It's typically half of that of the bank. If you're sending $10,000 versus $100, that cost is going to be on a sliding scale. But typically you're looking at less than $10. If you're sending US dollar, Bonnie, it's absolutely free. You're not going to pay a dime for that.
She wouldn't pay a dime for, I was reading her question. She wouldn't pay a dime for sending, what did you say?
US dollar to Italy.
Okay, so she said, I'll send it in US dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to speak a little bit more about how it would look for the desktop side. So And are you asking how would it look inside Veem, or are you asking how would it look inside QuickBooks? Could you be more specific on which side you're looking for? Can we have a separate webinar how exactly we can set up Veem with our QuickBooks Desktop? So this is the thing. Veem does not sync with QuickBooks Desktop. So what you're going to look at, give me just a second. I almost had my QuickBooks like open, but then I was like, no, I won't need it. So give me a second, I'll open it. So basically the way that Veem works for QuickBooks Desktop, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, is that for desktop, they're going to be mainly paying it inside Veem. If they want to import it into QuickBooks, they would do that little page that you were sending where it said,
that CSV export.
Yeah, so it's not going to automatically sync, but if you use it just like you do a bank feed or your bank account when you pay online, where you can download it as it's happening, you can do it that way, or you can prepay it. So let me open up my QuickBooks real fast, and I'll just kind of share my screen real fast.
And while you do that, I'm just going to answer Russell's question. So the payments that come through, they'll always hit the bank with the fact that Veem is the one who issued the payment and the payment ID number. And then most times it'll also include the name of the sender. In addition to that, as Candus mentioned earlier, each side of the transaction will get an email when funds are on the way, and that email will include invoice numbers, notes, attachments to make sure it gets credited to the right account. So that should all be fairly simple to go through. The first payment is usually the trickiest for both sides to kind of understand, this is new, how does this all work? After that, you're good to go.
And don't be shy to, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, don't be shy to ask questions, because that's the whole reason we're doing this live, because otherwise we could have pre-recorded it. We wanted you guys to ask questions to get your questions answered. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You're going to say something else.
And so Rhonda, to answer your question about cryptocurrency, we don't handle any change of cryptocurrency from one business into Veem out to a fiat currency like a US dollar or euro. We do use some cryptocurrency in the background. So we use blockchain to handle all of that. And that's sort of what that looks like. So we don't handle cryptocurrency directly for your team and your clients yet. Mary, to answer your question about how we compare to TransferWise, very similarly, costs are usually about the same, but I'd love to do a cost comparison. We can stack it up apples to apples to make sure it makes sense for you. And then with the extra integrations, it'll work for you on that side. Candus, did you manage to get your QuickBooks open there?
Yes, they were asking you, does it integrate? I do. I didn't want to cut you off while you were chatting, so I'll be silent.
No problem.
Okay, so if we're talking desktop, you can import the CVS file, but you would just use it just like any other form that you were paying or receiving money from. So if you use enter bills, you guys can see my screen, right? I think so. If you were entering your bill just like normal, but you were using Veem to pay it, to pay your vendor, your independent contractor, or your supplier, then you would just go under pay. You're still going to use your same bank account. It's just going to clear or be sent. So when you go to pay it, if you wanted to, you could choose something different, but you could use it just as check, and you could use assign number like this here. Let's just do one real quick. This is old, but we'll just do it. Assign check number here. If you wanted, you could type in Veem, right? Instead of an actual check number, and then click OK, and then it would be done. So you could still process it through QuickBooks just like normal, unless you want to download and import the file.
What a lot of our users have found, speaking of the check number, just before I forget, sorry to cut you off there, Candus, is Veem will give you a transaction ID number as well. So you can also put that transaction ID number in there, and it just makes sure that the payment that comes through on your bank statement matches up to that really well. Yeah.
So if you don't want Veem, you could do the transaction number. If it's like 31 or, VM, whatever, that works for you too. And then if you're getting paid from your customers, you would still create an invoice, receive the payment, you can send it through. How does your integration work with sending invoices, or you have no integration yet to send invoices to do ACH through Veem with desktop, right?
Sorry, one more time, Candus?
You don't have an integration for desktop for sending invoices to get paid yet. Is that correct?
That's true, yeah. So desktop is one of the things we're looking at. We're always looking at new products to integrate with. If desktop integration is something that would really benefit you guys, please reach out to us, let us know. It helps us make informed decisions on what features to build. We get asked for 1,000 things all the time, so we kind of got to stack it all up, figure out what's the most important for the next piece. And QuickBooks Desktop is always up there. So I want to make sure that we can find tools that are going to work for you guys, and we'll build those out as well. And so, Judy, to answer your question, yes, you get a confirmation number. I think you're right. We did just answer that. And then any other integrations on there that you might not see, we do have a full integrations tab in Veem that you can check out everything that we're doing on that front as well.
So if you end up using Veem to get your payments from your customers, you can always you could always save a PDF. It takes a little extra work, but you could save your PDF, your invoice from QuickBooks and put it in as the PDF for Veem when you bill manually on the back end if you wanted to do that. And then what you could do is you could come here and you could always add a payment method, and you could always add Veem if you want. I would leave it as cash because you don't want to do it as a credit card, or it's just easier. Then it won't try to process it for you. And then you could come in here and you could basically say that your customers paid you, and then you just record it as a deposit just like normal. It would be sitting in your undeposited funds for how the back end would work. So you basically would just be using Veem as an additional way to receive your payments or send your payments. It's not as smooth with desktop, but it is still something that you can use. And it still works great, even if you're entering. So let's just say like you were like me working with international people, you could still enter their bill or write a check, and it would still, even though it was paid through Veem, you'd still select your bank account. You could put your transaction number or Veem there and still process it like normal. You're just using an outside source. Like even with PayPal, you have to bring the transactions in. The same is true with Veem for the desktop side of it. Does that make sense? Did showing you guys that, was that clear? Let me know. Let me check the chat real fast. Once Veem is set up in QuickBooks, does it appear in the emailed invoices as an option for payment as the ACH does on the online? That would be a question more for Patrick to speak to.
Yeah. So great question, Rhonda. What's going to happen is all of that will come into Veem, and if you action it from Veem, we will still send the emailed invoice on that side with all of your features. You won't be able to action it from inside QuickBooks Online yet. That's something we're looking to build in the near future.
Okay. Does that answer all your questions? Anything else? I love the questions. That's my favorite part, because then you get the practical application. Because you can talk about it, but when you can see it, it makes so much more sense.
I can present all day long, but I think what really is helpful to hear from you guys and what works for you. And this level of conversation is stuff that we like to do every day. Our team is here to talk about these things all the time on a one-on-one basis or longer, whatever you guys need to make sure you're supported. We understand that payments are a core piece of your business, whether we think about them or not. We want to make sure we take care of that. And Mary, to answer your question, yes, they will. Each payment will show up as a separate transaction on your bank statement, unless you tell us to consolidate those payments. So let's say you have 3 payments that you're sending to Candus all at the same time for 3 different invoices. You can consolidate that into one debit and credit to make it easier on everybody, but you can also break them out, whatever works best for you.
Well, that's a great question. So I want to speak to that a little bit more. So I had somebody I was working with, private client recently, and because of everything going on with Corona, a lot more of her customers were wanting to send through like ACH or through card payments, and she was like, "But I hate it because the way the merchant works is each one is separate, and my bank statement gets ridiculously long." So what you're saying is you can do kind of like a merchant where it combines it. You can do the same thing with Veem where you could do like totals.
As long as it's the same person. So when it's not the same person, we do have to break it out. And that's actually a federal regulation. Just so you guys are aware, the US Department of Treasury mandates that we separate it out so they can see who's getting paid where and from whom. So that's all the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and the US Department of Treasury that makes us do that.
Interesting. There's so many rules. That's why we don't have to be experts. We just ask Veem to help us out. I see a couple people have their hands raised that are here live. If you have a question, make sure you pop it in because that's the easiest for us. Anything else, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you tell Patrick thank you for coming by to share about them. And we will give you guys all their contact information. You can reach out if you want to set it up for your free account. You can just go to Kampfer/Veem. They're saying thank you. Do you see that?
Thank you, guys.
And if you have more specific questions, like, does this apply to my business? How does it work? What would, give me the exact cost? Like, what would it work? And then I'm going to tell you guys this. It's like everything I push you to do, and you're always grateful that I do it later. Just do it, and then you'll see what it's like. And I can tell you that I've used them for a long time. I wouldn't share with them if I hadn't. And you can always test it. And if you don't like it, fine. But you at least tried it. And usually give yourself like a couple tries before you judge anything is my second part. Sometimes the first time you set it up, it's going to be a little rough. Do a couple payments and see how you like it. And then it'll be a lot easier. They're saying, thank you. I think that's everything. I need help with paying liability tax sections. Okay, that has nothing to do with our training today for Veem. That's something totally different. This is a very focused on Veem specifically. Thank you for coming. I had a great time. I always enjoy getting to chat and show you guys new stuff. So I hope that you at least try Veem out, find out if it works for your company, and then let us know. We want to hear like, what was your experience with Veem? How did you enjoy it? If you have any more questions, let us know. We'll put all the links. If you're catching this, we're going to probably put it up on YouTube. We'll also have a replay for you so you guys can check it out. Reach out to Patrick and his team. We will see you soon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of my community. Don't forget that today's thought of the day was I choose happiness. It says, memo to self, remember to enjoy the miracle of existence today. Thank you, Patrick, for being here. I hope that Veem is a perfect fit for those that it fits. I'd love to hear. I know international, it made a huge difference for us and independent contractors. Instead of having to wait to send a check or go online and figure it out, it's just there right away. And it makes it a lot easier. You know what else I like about Veem? A side note is I like there's like, it tracks all the transactions. So sometimes I want to go back and look and see like when I sent certain things, and I can go back, click on it, see the PDF, see the details when things were sent. So that I like as well.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Candus, for having me. It was great to meet everybody. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, want to go over things. We're always here to help. And I look forward to chatting with you guys again soon.
All right. Toodaloo. Till next time, guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.